All right, let's get started. So I guess we're talking about your book here, Thug Life to Triumphant Life. I guess tell me about what made you start with this book, and tell me, I guess, the story behind it, the process behind it.
Well, first, let me start out by saying most of you all are used to hearing and listening to my wingman, Tony Owens, and I, and our podcast, Two Men on the Stool. But today, we're going to change it up just a little bit. And it's going to be, even though we've written 7 books, this is the first book that we wrote about my life, my journey, Thug Life to Triumphant Life. But I got to take some context, and that is, this book, it is about trauma. It's about pain. It's about growing up. It's about when I first wrote it 20 years ago. It's about you hear people talk about credit, street cred, and that's BS. And some people didn't, even who I grew up with, and especially as I got older, they didn't know this story. But I always tell people that I helped kill my mom. Now let me pause there. When I say I helped kill my mom, I attribute it to her death by the type of behavior I carried on, by her not knowing where her youngest boy. And then, my boy Tony, my wingman, he talks about sometimes kids are stuck in the game at a point of no return. And I can tell you I was stuck in the game from being incarcerated to, not for a long period of time, but my mom as a teenager. But sometimes, your bad behavior, good people sometimes do bad things. And so this story I want to talk about is before Two Men on the Stool. It's a different journey because it wasn't a journey. Plenty of people done been out there hustling, selling drugs, locked up as a teenager, get out, maybe get into that trap game. But this was before the T.I.s of the world. This was before. T.I.'s a young man. This is the original Bankhead. We're talking about Bankhead Court and Bowen Home. So those things is the framework. Those are the things I want to frame this because it's about pain and suffering. It's about when you're in trauma, you don't know you're in trauma. Because if that's your life every day and you're traumatized every day, then you don't know any better. And so I frame that on this journey, and I'll probably go back and forth. But now, before I can even talk about that life, I need to go back and digress a little bit and talk about where it began. Many years ago, and then something happened to me 3 weeks ago, Tony and I were riding to Florida. And one of my best friends at 10 years old named Garrett, Gabo. First of all, I'm a native of Atlanta, Georgia, in the heart of Atlanta, Wheat Street Garden, 4th Ward. Elementary school, John Hope Elementary. And we grew up in a good, I think his name was Reverend Border, Wheat Street Baptist Church. It wasn't a project, it wasn't a hood. We had a great life. But I was a sickly child. And I know this talks about the trauma of my mother, how traumatized she was raising 5 kids, 2 older brothers that was also my mentor. They knew their father, my 2 younger sisters who knew their father. But I didn't realize how traumatized I was because my mom, I believe, overcompensated because I'm the son of Odessa Beaty and a sperm donor. And I choose not to say his name because I lived 50 years plus of being angry, not what he did to me, but what he did to my mama. And so I digress a little bit and talk about that childhood. And, I lost my identity. I'm a Beatty by last name, but the reality is I took the last name of my brother's father. I don't know, have never seen my sperm donor. And at the time, my mama overcompensated, her and my auntie. But then I have to think about Big Mama and my uncles and my aunts and my big mama, strongest woman I knew, never drove a car, catching the bus to work, no help, raising 7, 8, 9 kids. My mama raising 5 by herself. And then, to be in the house. I was a 2nd grade spelling bee champ. I loved school. I was a model kid. Whatever she said do, I did it. But then trauma hit my mama. She lost a couple of kids. I didn't know at the time. My brother told me. I didn't know why she was sick. And then she lost the first biggest trauma is the man, most important person in my mama's life, her father. He was murdered by another woman over jealousy, stabbed. And my mom had a breakdown. And we lost everything. And Auntie lived with us and we went to church. We did all those things. I loved school. But then something happened. Something happened. It's not always to be a chameleon. I should have stayed the way I was. But I started adapting. I started changing. Hadn't changed yet because I was still 10. But in 1968, I didn't know the meaning. 2 blocks away is where Dr. King grew up at. And when that procession, and my mom took us there, as I recall, I didn't know the meaning in 1968. 2 blocks, my mama walking, seeing a procession with Dr. King from when I was 9 years old. Then that next year, after she had her breakdown, we lost everything. I thought we were moving on up. But then we moved on down in so many ways.
Before we move on there, tell me a little bit more about, I guess, before that big change.
Yeah. So before the big change, the old neighborhood, like I said, you know, man, I love school. I love learning. I was creative. You know, the Atlanta Braves, every little boy wants to go see the Braves play baseball. We would sneak in the stadium. That was as much dirt as I could do. Sneaking in the Atlanta Braves stadium, me, Gabo, and a few more of us in Wheat Street Garden. But then, you know, going to John Hope Elementary School, being a second grade spelling bee champion and doing those other things and watching my uncles would bring me over. I was clean, sharp. They would make me do the Jane Brown for a nickel. They were great athletes, but they also were making me do it to impress their girlfriend. I don't really think they had that much talent, honestly, with girls, but they had me dancing in front of them and just that whole village. And then I watched my uncles give my mama money, even though they were younger then, but they got older and they would try to help her too, their oldest sister. And then my mom having to live, you know, and then my mom getting married and having a child at 15. That's trauma. We weren't ready for that. Then in 1969, you know, my mama had a breakdown. Call it what you want, more trauma. Then all of a sudden, my uncle became a different uncle. That was that big move to Bankhead Court. Let me tell you something. That big move to Bankhead Court, and oh, by the way, I forgot to tell you, this eye right here, you can't see it. But I kind of joke with folks about I got in a fight with Stevie Wonder. Let me tell you what I really mean. You know, you just have them 45 no album, they would be worth so more money. Now, we throwing them around like salsa, and one of them hit me in the eye. And then 3 weeks ago, as I mentioned, Tony and I were driving to Florida or somewhere, and I called Georgia Powell, and this is another one of those things that doesn't happen often. My best friend, Garrett, I haven't talked to since we were 10. I called Georgia Powell to get the power turned off on one of the properties I was selling. He went on and on and on. He said, "Sir, I'll probably get fired for this, but is your name Reginald Beaty from Wheat Street Garden?" I said, "Yeah." "You have a brother named Greg Beaty, Aunt Beaty?" "Yeah." "Val Beaty, Miss Odessa Beaty, your mom?" I said, "Yeah." He said, "Red, this is Gabo, your best friend growing up, and I hadn't seen him in 55 years. And the first thing he said was to Tony, and Tony's listening to this, "Red, I remember when we were out there playing, throwing records, and that record hit you in your eye, and I thought you were gonna die. I thought you were dead." And Tony said something to the effect, "Man, that's fate." And I shared that with my boys. I couldn't believe it. I hadn't seen him. And then he said, "Man, I remember your brother Ant, man. We were probably around 15. I hadn't seen you in 5 years. And your brother Ant told me, Gary, I think we done lost Red." That's what they called me, Red. "I think we lost Red. He in those streets. He out there hustling, man. He out there gambling. He out there stealing. He out there robbing people. He out there doing that dirt, man. I think we done lost him, man. We don't even know where he's at some days." And he told my best friend that, and he told me that 55 years later. He told my mama about it. They talk about it. Imagine 55 years later, you ain't talked to your best friend. Except for the summer, his mama let him move out there with us when we first moved to Bankhead Court. After that trauma, losing everything. Gaining an uncle, a different uncle. But this happened just 3 weeks ago, and so the catalyst for why to write the book, why to tell this story now, I've been told to tell it for years. Tony's been encouraging me to do it. And now others who are like the executive producer, Hayes and Monica, have said, Reggie, you need to tell this story. And so why? We'll come back to the whys, because right now I think it's worth digressing and looking at what this life was about. And it's traumatic. It's pain. I should have called it suffering. Hurt. It's not always good. So I say again, that badge of honor about thug life, this is about poverty. Poverty led good people to do bad things.
Tell me a little bit more about your siblings in those earlier years.
Man, you know, I'm gonna talk about my brothers, my two older brothers. First of all, my older brother was the smartest man I ever met in my life. The man graduated from high school when he was 16. He didn't go to this latter part of his grades. He could do anything, read anything, knew something about everything. But the first time I remember about a game, when my brother got to fighting with this dude who was part of a game, my brother beat him down. We were still living in Wheat Street Garden. And he went and got all his boys, and they jumped my brother and hit my brother in the head with a pipe. And my other brother, now I was a little boy, probably 7, 8, but that was the last time the beater boy was gonna take a butt whipping from anybody. And that's what we learned, you know, Tony called it fight or flight, you know, but I refer to it as survival. And it was good to have older brother. And then my brother Greg. My brother Ant had the first child when he was 17, 18. My mother 15. My brother Greg had his first child, and my brother Greg had 6 kids by 5 different women. But my brother Greg was one of the best men ever because he took care of them. He was hustling, selling smoke to people, enough to earn money to take care of his kids, plus he had a job. And his kids are brothers and sisters, but these were friends having babies by friends. He had a baby by 2 of my best friends, Mama, Joe Cap and Gabo, another different Gabo. And so that community, it was traumatized. But we didn't look upon it as frowning. Babies having babies, 13, 14-year-olds having babies. And then my sister, a teen mother. My oldest sister, who was 2 years younger than me. My other brother Aunt had 8 kids. So these men, they taught me, some good, some bad. The best of us teenagers can teach a young brother. And so when I think about all that trauma, and then, you know, it's so easy for me not to skip over because I can forget so much that happened. But sometimes those scars, the emotional scars are worse than the physical scar. Physical scar heals. But I got a cut right here from getting in a fight, being locked up, fighting just because I was angry. You say something to me, if I remember the first butt whipping I took, Ronnie Brocktail talk about it. Redman, you remember that time Stewart dunked you? Because I hit him with a baseball bat just playing. And then maybe a month later, I got hit in the head with a baseball. On Cowboy Hill, we had some of the best athletes. But I'm thinking about my siblings, my little sisters, my brother. So when I talk about this ain't no real badge of honor. It really not. It's really tragic in some ways because I look at all the other people I grew up with that was stuck in that game at a point of no return. And then I look at what we experienced, the life in Bankhead Court. So that big move in 1969 to these new apartments, they were new, but how do you take hundreds and hundreds of families, put them in a neighborhood with no men, no fathers? You got this policy, welfare policy, and now you get this new Uncle Sam, because my cereal no longer tasted the same in my new neighborhood after we lost everything. My cereal had powdered milk. We had to eat grits and prunes and Spam from my uncle. I know that stuff wasn't healthy, but that's the best we had. And so when you start thinking, and I owe it to those strong mothers, as I transition, I want to talk, you know, that. So why did I write this book and why my siblings? Yeah, to honor, but also to prevent, because the audience that I want to talk to, I want to share this story because I'm good.
Did your siblings discipline you at all?
So, you know, it's so interesting that you asked about did my siblings discipline me. I had a great relationship with my brothers. But I remember one incident. This is when I was out. I'm fast forwarding, so I'll keep going back and forth. I remember an incident when, man, the respect I had for my brothers, they taught me. They taught me a lot of good things. They taught me some things that probably teenagers shouldn't be doing. I shouldn't have been having sex at 12, 13, 14. I shouldn't have been doing that, but I watched my brothers. And we used to have this word called a pimp. Everybody wanted to be a pimp. But back in the day, a pimp was somebody that prostituted women. Yeah, that was really the definition. I remember going to the drive-in theater seeing the movie The Mac. But that wasn't the kind of pimp. You know, that you used to go to the drive-in theater, you sitting out there, you better think about the drive-in theater. We didn't have no car. We sneak in the drive-in theater from the backwoods and go sit out there and listen. The Mac, pimp. What a pimp was then was a dude, man, you don't say you love nobody. My brother say, man, you don't tell no girl you love her. We don't talk about that. You get multiple girls. You pimp. Your pimping is you have sex with multiple girls. That's your pimp. You're a pimp because you got a lot of women. That's what pimping was in the hood. But that pimping that mindset led to so many babies having babies. So many, nobody was a mistake, but nobody at our age should have been having sex. 4 or 5 of us in a room having sex in the same room. At 12, 13, 14, I ain't talking about puppy love. Because the girls had changed somewhat from my old neighborhood when I was a nerd. Maybe sometimes people still think I am one, but I was a nerd. I was nerdy. I loved school. But then the girls, we started playing spin the bottle. We started dipping at 14 because we watched our brothers and sisters. The parents might go somewhere and somebody, mama let them have fun. Odessa and Miss Grace and Miss Bernice and Miss Cora and Miss Fanny, and sometimes people they wouldn't let us have no party, but some people, mama, would let us have parties. And I was old then. I was 14. My mama would send my brothers to get me. She go to sleep. I go down that pole because I want to be out. Those streets got me. And we were smoking. I was getting high. At 13, 14 years old, my brother was giving me herb. I was getting high, I was drinking. But also, school no longer was important to me.
While we're on the subject, can you tell me, we're gonna get back to the discipline, but can you tell me a little bit about the I Got the Power?
Wow. You know, I listen to Tony sometimes talk about the things they did at Beecher Hill and his elementary school and family trips in a car. And I think about it. We never owned a car. We never had a car. Most families out there didn't have nothing but the good old Uncle Sam. So when you think about the song, I was in I had a little group, me and my boys, probably about 3 or 4 of us, and we were mimicking the Temptation, and I wrote a song. And essentially, bless her heart, now she's passed on, but every time she see me, Gail Stevenson, who her and I, her sister and my brother Greg have babies. We live right literally next door to each other in our apartment. And she always tell me, Red B, you remember you used to perform that song on the merry-go-round, 50, 100 people back there, and you had that song called I Got the Power, and everybody be listening. And the song would go like, my background, I couldn't sing, well, maybe, I don't know back then, but it would be, I got the power, ooh-wee, baby. At 13, 12, you writing a song, I got the power, my head is aching. I got the power, honey. And everybody be like, Red Beaty, that was our entertainment on the merry-go-round. Then from now, after hearing this song, me and Garrett and D-Head and others, we go, and Earl, we sing this song, then that thing I know, we be over there playing Spin the Bottle with a girl, and then somebody having a party at their house that night, and we're in there dipping. Getting high at 13, 14, drinking, dipping. Anybody know what dipping is? That's when you slow dance with a girl. Then slow dance lead to something else. And it just became, well, you don't have a trip to where? You don't leave Bankhead. And then nobody wanted to play us in sports. And then Tony talks about nobody wanted to come. The mailman was scared to come out there. Police were scared to come out there. Because every day somebody was getting killed, seemed like. And we watched it. But then I'm going to tell you how terrible people treat poor people. We were treated bad. You know, I told you I was created with the game with Stevie Wonder, but let me tell you another thing that happened when we moved out there. Here are all woods, and I don't know how it happens, but you're supposed to excavate this land before you start bringing in property and building stuff. But they didn't excavate because there's some critters that lived out there before us in those woods. And we used to have the thing we call them wash rats. And this is like, you could talk to anybody. Rats and roaches. And we were the cleanest people. My mom was so clean, but imagine hundreds of apartments that's built, and now all of a sudden you bring people from all around the city of Atlanta, from Perry Home, Carver Home, all these projects, Perry Home, McCannyville, and everybody go into Bankhead Court, these new apartments, everybody wanted one. But guess who lived out there before we got there? Thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands of rats. I ain't talking about mice. I'm talking about rats that can jump up. Rats big as cats. Cats scared of rats. Dogs scared of rats. They run by our feet. Guess what we did? We laugh about it. Trauma. Babies being bit. Babies being bit. And you know what changed it? And this is the trauma. After seeing people get hit, you know, you're a 13, 12-year-old, you seeing people get their head blown off. You get a gun put up to your head. You laughing because you being shot at, because you're up there robbing somebody at the drive-in movie theater. You, Earl, Head, and Ricky. We're up there robbing people, laughing about it because somebody's shooting at us. Stealing, breaking into people's houses. And so when I think of these rats, I just want to share this. Maynard Jackson, we were rioting. Guess how we rioted? Those of that know Bankhead Court, and I mentioned this was before the Bankhead bounce and the TIs and all that. This is on Bankhead Highway, about a 10, 12-mile stretch from the Cobb County, Chattahoochee River, Bankhead Court, all the way to downtown. And you move out there, then all of a sudden, your projects double up. Let me tell you why they double. First of all, the rats. Maynard Jackson, we would throw rocks, those strong black mothers. They protested, babies getting bit. Not because we were dirty. You put one big garbage disposal out there for hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of families. You don't have no air conditioning, more less than a garbage disposal. What you gonna do with that trash and that food? You're gonna take it out there and put it out there. So now these rats getting fed. These rats will jump up from the bottom to the top of the garbage disposal, and you'll be out your window, and you walk, I'm sitting like this, and big rat run across your feet. You just jump up like that and laugh about it. Like that's nothing. I wish I could make it up, but then Maynard Jackson came out and stayed out there 2 days, and he saw how we were living. And he said nobody should live like this. By this time, I'm probably older. I'm 13 now. Maybe I'm 12. And then the fire department coming out. They putting this stuff down in the sewer. And babies and all of us watching. And all they're doing is taking steak, firemen, taking steak with a nail on it. Nail, as they come up out of the sewer, thousands and thousands of rats. We sticking holes in it. You clean. You wake up that next day, and a rat done bit through your breast, so everything got to go in the refrigerator. You go in your house, you turn the lights on, and you over your mama. My mama pine saw every day, clean every day, bleach all these mothers. It didn't matter because of that environment. And now all of a sudden, let me calm down a little bit because I get emotional thinking about these mothers and the unconditional love. And all of a sudden, we triple. Older brothers getting out of jail. Girls start having babies because, hey, our outlet, not it was bad, I get it. Sometimes survival. Girls start having babies, they can get a check, maybe they get an apartment. So what was built for maybe a few hundred families, now we got thousands of families. We had our own elementary school. And as Tony said, nobody wanted to come to Bankhead. We had that reputation. We were featured on 60 Minutes as one of the worst neighborhoods in the country for violence, crime. Think about it when the police, this is even way before the crack epidemic. This was survival. And you're watching guys. You know, I went to my mom one time. I said, Mom, can I have a nickel or a dime? And she said, boy, you don't need that. I was so ignorant at the time, I didn't realize she didn't have a nickel or a dime to spare. But I wanted an ice cream cone. Sometimes the older dude would give you a nickel or a dime or buy your ice cream. But education, it became non and void important to me. And then I was expelled. Nothing I'm proud of. Expelled.
Tell me a little bit about Nephew Cam.
Wow. You know, I made a call before the taping this show, and I called my brother Greg because he remembered a lot. And I asked his permission. I said, Greg, how much can I talk about? Because the first thing, this is the first time I've told the story live. I've written about it, but the first time I've told the story live because I was embarrassed. But I want to talk about my nephew, Ken. My nephew, Ken, went to work, came out to Bankhead to see his mama, my mama, his grandmama, his mama. He was working, a whole bunch of people, just like in Bankhead. We're a big family. It's about love. You may not feel it because we'll kill you just before we'll love you. if you do something wrong to us. Angry people, traumatic. So my nephew went out to see his mom. He got out of work lunch break, and he got shot. Dude just shot in a crowd of people. And that unlucky bullet, that crazy thing hit my nephew. Killed him. He laying in the streets dead. I get a call from my family member. I go out there, and my brother crying and his mama crying. My nephew, he now has 6, 7 kids of his own now. Working man. Best young man in the world. He been gone now 20-something years because the dude, somebody else brought some dirt to the community. And the dude took some drugs from whatever, irrelevant. And then that dude, they tried to catch him. The police, he ended up killing somebody else in a streetcar race. And then that same dude, my nephews and other family members, they wanted to go kill him. So I had to go, Tony and I think Tony was with me, I had to go on the radio show and talk about this murder and this killing. Then I had a microphone and hundreds of people because my brother said he didn't want that. My family wanted to retaliate. My nephew wanted to go get him because that's just what we did. You hurt one of us, we're going to hurt you. We don't care what your reason. But that's what that trauma leads. Fight. And my nephew, right now, I watch my brother. He runs 5 miles a day, but I watch how he aged. I watch how he don't trust anybody because it took his oldest child. I watch another one of his children being sexually assaulted by some boys at a Wendy's. I didn't watch it, but we knew about it. So all this trauma and watching my brother and Cheryl, his mother, my nephew's mother, stopping my other nephews and other members crying because they want to go take revenge. And I said, no, my brother said he didn't want that. But that's the kind of environment. You hurt us, we gonna hurt you. You know, I'm just reminded, one time I came home from this fast forward, came home from college one time, my sister got in a fight. You gotta understand my sister now. My sister would fight anybody and everybody. And she was down there and somebody came and yelled at me. I was like a freshman in college, sophomore, I had come back. And my sister, they said, Red, the man down there jumping on your sister. And me, of course, you don't do that. I don't know why, but I ran down there. And then my sister jump on the dude. And my sister said, guess what? My sister said, Red, he ain't got no gun. He don't have no gun. And I said, girl, come on here. Because you fight. That's what we knew, fight. I was angry. I can tell you I was angry. I was an angry young boy, maybe an angry young man. And so when I started thinking about Bankhead and I think about people, I'm not gonna say name, but I think about one of my friends got his head blown off. I see and watch one of my boys get his head blown off. I get a gun put to my head. Somebody think I'm cheating and gambling. I had a day job and a night job. One of my greatest regrets, I have a couple. My first one is I never told my mother that I love her. Because my mother didn't tell us we love her. She loved her. She would write on the note. We knew she loved her, but that wasn't, you don't grow up talking about you love nobody. I'm reminded that even growing up in that trauma, my greatest regret, I never told that lady before she passed. I helped kill her, but I never told her I love her. I showed her some things, but then that trauma, when you start thinking about, my past and my mom and that whole adage around love and regret, guess what? One of my best, if not my best boy, Ronnie Brock, you got all up. Ronnie wouldn't go with us during the day to go steal and break into people's house with Ricky, Earl, and D-Head. Ronnie didn't want to go. But at night, during the day, I hung with them, breaking into people's houses. I was one of the strategic planners to how we gonna break in somebody's house, knock on the door, send D-Head knock on the door, see if anybody home, nobody home. We going through your window. We stealing everything. First gun I had, 22 and the 38, we stole out of somebody's house, going out of their pillar. I don't regret doing that stuff, but I was hungry. I wanted stuff. Couldn't buy ice cream, not even butter cookies. And then you start thinking about Block and others who killed, dragged from a car, David Charles. You start thinking about all these people who you seen get killed. You see your best friend brother being killed by another best friend. You see these things. These are things that happen. This all happened in our community. That we got that reputation in the city of Atlanta. That violence, that crime. And then I'm on to focus this the last part on me. And that was, I wanted stuff. I don't really know if I ever was a thug, but 2 years I was in the street. I got expelled from high school. What is a kid gonna do at 14 hanging in the street? You're gonna start doing stuff. You want stuff. So in the daytime, I'm breaking into houses. I'm stealing. Then at night, I was armed rob, going to drive-in theater, going other places, me and my boys. And then finally, at night, I'm gambling old men, get them drunk, stealing, cheating on them, in dice, shooting pool. And then, playing cards. So I had 2 jobs, hustle. I had thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars in my pocket as a teenager. Me and my boy shouted. And then I want to make this one point that sometimes you need moral compensation. So before that, and I missed that, at 12 years old, I got a job by Mr. Bob. Mr. Bob owned a restaurant. He was a moral compensation, an older white man. He would come at 5 or 6 in the morning, pick us up, go let us do yard work. But some of my boys didn't want to get up, but I wanted that money. I would get up, and then he had a restaurant. And then Mr. Bob died. He no longer would come to Bankhead while we were riding, throwing bricks. And he was the boldest man I ever met in my life, between him and a guy named Neil Shawhouse. But those were moral compensations that everybody needed. And then they came out, he died. Then Miss Ann had a vegetable truck. She was the lead cook, and she let me work with her. And so I'm thinking about this, and guess what? I lost that job because we got robbed in Perry Home, Mechanicville. Me and Yuga and Miss Ann got robbed so many times. But I was an entrepreneur because I know she was paying me breaking child labor laws that we had in it. So she would let me weigh the fruit, take the fruit, and guess what I would do? If the fruit was $5.80, I'd tell her I sold $4.80 worth and put $1 in my shoe. Yuga would get 50-cent piece, put it in his shoe, quarter. By the time we got done that night, we had stole from her too. And we were hustling. And we were robbing guys in Perry Home, taking fruit. It wasn't mine. I didn't care a little bit of dude. I was probably 13, 14 by then. And I lost that job. And now my life started really going into shambles before I even went to high school.
Cool. So I guess take me from that transition from you're at Bankhead Courts, and now take me from that transition into ending up in juvenile detention center.
So what do you say about Academy T? I'm gonna come back to Academy T, that transition, because that's critical. I like to say Academy T started that Triumphant Life. But when I go back and think about, you said, Hayes, I think you talked about being in that life in Bankhead. What was your specific question about that?
Well, really going into Academy T. So like going from, I guess, that environment in turn making you more aggressive and putting you in different situations. How do you end up at Academy T?
So first, as I mentioned, I was in the streets for 2 years doing nothing. I'm reminded of the time, and this is sad, and my brother talked about it, my brother Garrett. My mama didn't know where I was for days. My little girlfriends and stuff, they didn't know. Nobody hardly knew it because you don't go around bragging, this is what we've been doing during the day. But I was on the other side of the street, me and my boys, I guess, and my mama hadn't seen me for days. She sent my brothers looking for me. And they found me. And my brother Greg said I pulled a gun on him, but I don't think I pulled no gun on my brother. I wasn't gonna do nothing. But they told me to come home. I went home, and they were a little bigger than me, a lot bigger. One of them held me down. The other one beat me with a belt. I was crying, I'm gonna kill y'all. And my brother Greg and my brother Ant said they were scared. They thought I really was gonna shoot them. But that was that, I was angry. I was traumatized probably, but we didn't use those words. I was angry. I mean, I'm sad about it. I'm not, my mama, I'm out gambling in her house. She came out and hit me, hit me with a racing car strap because I'm gambling. I'm disrespecting her. But I got thousands of dollars in my pocket now. And so, when I think about that transition and all that, I think about all the people who I grew up, probably 70-something of us in the 7th grade, couple weeks ago at Fat Black homegoing, Thunder, Fat Black, we called, everybody had a nickname. Iris said to me, Reggie Beaty, you were like the smartest boy. No, you were one of the smartest students in our whole class. But imagine 70, 80 seventh graders, and y'all move out there since the fifth, and only maybe 6 or 7 of y'all maybe graduate from high school. Kids didn't go to school in the 5th grade, 6th grade, 7th grade. Just school wasn't important. We were about that life. We were about that life. A whole community of trauma. No men, no black men, black boys, killing each other, fighting for no reason. So it's sex. And then all of a sudden, before I transition, let me tell you how traumatic it was. It was so traumatic that a lot of the violence stopped. But guess why it stopped? Not because people weren't angry, because in a roundabout way, my brother Greg had 6 kids by 5 different women, and those women were friends, most of them. My brother Aunt had babies by friends. My brother had babies by my best friend. Baked beans, squirrel, sister. My brother Aunt had baby by Yugi, one of my best boys. Yugi had a baby by my first girlfriend, but we were still best friends. Running about brother. But we had no code, we were cool. My brother had baby by his best friend's sister. No, his best friend girlfriend, she had a baby by him. And now all of a sudden, everybody become killing each other. How you kill each other? Because every sudden now, people refer to me, you go out there to Bankhead, Uncle Red, ain't my biological uncle, nephews and nieces. But when you grow up like that, in a roundabout way, success wasn't, this was survival, not bad people. But 14, 15, 16-year-old had no business. I shouldn't have been having sex at 12. I shouldn't have been having sex at 13. I shouldn't have been encouraging a 10-year-old to come and go with me breaking somebody's house, do this dirt. I shouldn't have been. We should have been in school somewhere, but, that was that life. It was about surviving. I no longer had to go to my mama. I could give my mama some money now. Thousands and thousands of dollars. Because I was gamble. I would cheat. Cheat on your card, cheat on your pool, I had a pool table. I know how to get a pool table. And even before that, I can tell you about this one thing. I was so creative. Remember those rats used to jump up and tear up your house and tear up the garbage disposal? Now you got thousands of families that were built for hundreds of families. Now you got thousands of families living out there on top of each other with no services. People don't care about poor people. We weren't ignorant. We weren't stupid. We weren't barbaric. Just was about survival. Now all of a sudden, I'm so smart, I'm going to buy a BB gun because I'm going to rid my community over all these rats. I bought a BB gun. Now I'm out there and my mama went shooting pellets and BBs at rats. Think I'm going to kill all the rats. Then I bought a pool table. And I fixed that pool table so it would lean one way. I would know every break. I would bring my friends up there. I'd shoot and I'd gamble. Mama didn't know. I bought a pool table. We shoot pool up there in the big room up there because I was hustling. Awful. So I just want to take a quick pause and make sure that although I'm being naked in some ways, but I can't even tell you how many friends died from senseless death before the crack epidemic because we were mad and angry. And then, I'll probably think about it, people stealing horses. A Great Dane, riding around in the hood on a horse with no saddle. Great Dane stealing, going to Cowboy Hill. We were the best athletes. And then this is one I want to say, it was so much trauma that we caused trauma to each other. And this is not, I want to make sure I put this in the right context. I want you to understand, we used to have this guy. He was faster than Carl Lewis. He was the fastest man in the world for a week, we're concerned. But we were bad. We did bad things. This guy, he was a little older, and he used to get off the bus. I guess he was coming from work. And he'd take off running. And he would take off running because we throw rocks at him. Bricks, and we laugh about it. Guess because he was gay. And we called him Sissy Larry. It wasn't right. But just you didn't think about it. And then you think about Tub. Let me tell you something else. The new pandemic, the new way to get high, we were broke. So guess what we would do? And I didn't do it. I was strong. I don't know why, but my brother did. My boys did. A lot of them. But Tub and others, we used to go to Kmart and buy spray paint and roll that bag down in that bread bag, that sunbeam bread bag, blow in it, watch them do it, dump your mama bread out. This is how strung out some people were. Dump your mama bread out for that sunbeam bag, go to Kmart. You couldn't just get any paint. You had to get that gold spray paint. And people would spray it in this, and we'd be up in the woods, and I'm watching people, and people like this, and they talking out of their head because the new drug of choice, everybody could get high on 99-cent can of spray paint. And then they have glue stuck to their face, and it had to eat up brain cells. And I know Tub, I'm sure he lost it. You start doing that every day. I don't know why. Although I was smoking weed, getting high, we called it reefer back then. I was getting high then. My brother was giving it to me, my sister and I. But then, you start seeing people dying. I'm not gonna call all the names because I want to protect those families. But I can tell you how they died, from getting shot in the head to shooting each other. And then the family who you just killed go over across the street and kill somebody in his family, shoot in the house. We asked questions, laugh. It was a badge of honor to be my brother's younger brother. But I was angry. They told me. And then my brother Garrett had a nerve to tell me about 5 years ago, he said, man, I think you were just angry. I think you're still angry. And then my daughters telling me, Dad, you ought to find out who your dad. Why? What's my reason? What I want to know about a man who helped kill my mama, not $1. He don't even know. I wouldn't even know if I walked down the street. That's why I refer to him as a sperm donor. I'm not going to give him the honor. Maybe that's anger, I don't know. But maybe at this age, I'm still angry about it. But I'm not going to call his name. We know most kids come between a mother and a father, two people having sex, get together, and et cetera. But I like to say my mama had me by herself. He's a sperm donor. I never seen him. He never seen me. Then you start looking at how maybe we could have benefited if he had been around. So that's why now I tell people, I don't want to hear about, I heard something the other day about a young man saying he's going to pay or guess whatever amount of money, don't want no visitation right to his child and all that. I won't call his name because I'm not here to bash nobody. But at the same time, that money alone, think about the pain. I listened to Tony, my business partner, my wing man, talk about his dad. I listened to Sam. I listened to Abraham. I listened to Robert and Terry Colvin. I listened to Larry. I listened to Hooker. I listened to all these dudes have these stories about these great fathers. And all I could do is listen. It hurt. Shit, it still hurts. It hurts because he taught me, he's good and the bad. He taught me everything. He taught me everything about what not to be. Everything what not to be. So yeah, it's traumatic. But if you live in trauma every day, you don't know you're in trauma. I got a good uncle named Sam. I don't mean literally. I'm talking about Uncle Sam in Bankhead. He's now giving us prunes, food that's been stored for years, powdered milk, unhealthy food called Spam. He's giving us all this unhealthy food, but we ain't have no choice. We had to take it, and everybody want to share this. And then my mama not having no car, having to pay somebody to do this. I'm sure she made some decisions that she probably did for the love, unconditional love of her children. How did we get stuff for Christmas? My mom didn't have nothing, but we had stuff because they were survivors, those women rioting, those mothers out there. I can't even tell you, maybe one or two dads. But a policy say no men allowed. You're bound to have, so you're going to have killing of each other. Foolishness. So, it makes me sad. It makes me sad. My mother died. Fast forward. But I want to hold that because I do say that I helped kill her. Imagine your baby boy. You don't know where he's at. And then you got to go and get him out of the juvenile system. And you don't talk about it. You don't go around bragging. But my family knew, other people knew, Jerlene knew, other people like that who were in my close circle, Cheryl, them, they knew. My brothers, of course, knew. My sister knew. My oldest. My mom, of course, they knew the dirt. Earl, D-Head, Ronnie Brock, they all knew. But you won't find a better loving community. Even though we love you today on each other, but we sort of kill your snap. And then, people stealing your clothes off your clothesline. People stealing people's drawers. You can't even imagine. So now you hang your clothes up in your car. You ain't had no air conditioning, no dishwasher. You had to go get all. You ain't have none of that. You ain't have that. No garbage disposal. So it saddens me because there's so many other people who didn't make it out of that. Not because they were bad people. And we were some of the best athletes in the world. Some of the best. Football, baseball, basketball, we could play. We could play that ball. But Tony liked to remind me, sometimes the people were scared to come to Bankhead Court. They knew our reputation. Because we were going to beat you in sport. But also, we don't like something, we're going to fight you and beat you up too. Don't wonder kids wouldn't come out there and play us. So I wish I could say this was not happy. This was sad. No child should ever live the way we live. But no child should ever live the way I live. And I don't blame nobody. Maybe a little on that sperm donor. But I don't blame because my mother, she did what she had to do. I don't blame nobody. Strong people, strong women, strong black women. I'm the poster child for single mothers who are trying to do the darn thing. But I also know, listening to my boys talk about their dad and how afraid they were, I was like, man, I wish I had the chance to experience when Tony talked about his dad. When Rob and Colvin, they talk about their dads. I can't even fathom how that feels. I can't. But then a father figure came in my life. I might go back to some things sometimes as I tell this story, but this was my transition. After I lost my job on the vegetable truck, and then I used to walk 7-8 miles working at a restaurant because the buses would stop running when I was 14. I was busting tables. Maybe no, I was 15, 16. I was 16 then. I gotten out of the dirt, and they got me a job busting tables. I would walk through a graveyard by myself at night doing all this, 6-7 miles. They would give me a ride halfway. I was busting tables at this nice restaurant. But I don't know if I really had it in me to want to be a thug, but sometimes good people do bad things, and I chose because we were poor. We had cardboards in our shoes. My clothes were passed down from my brothers if I could get in some of them. It was bad. Who steal clothes? Who steal drawers? But we did. I did. You up in the woods, sniffing paint. And then sex. It destroyed our community. Fights and murders. Education, lack of, destroyed the community. A whole community of traumatized people. So I want to stop there and take a little break, a pause, because I think you got something you want to ask me before I go any further.
Oh no, I was going to ask you to go, I guess, into your first taste of the criminal justice system.
Wow. So I went to Mason Elementary, I went to John Hope Elementary, and I think Tony's oldest sister and I was in the same grade. We lived out on West Street Garden, John Hope Elementary. Then we moved to Bankhead in 1969 when that trauma happened with my mom. She lost who she was. She lost herself. And when you lose yourself, and so first time, man, I remember we didn't know where to play. The school was being built. I was the first graduate of the 7th grade, Blaylock Elementary, and we broke into school. And then somebody got caught, and they snitched, and they told where we lived at. One of the dudes got caught. We were just playing basketball, breaking into school. First time, I thought it was just funny, me in the back of a police car, and my mama wouldn't let me run. I was young, probably by then. I was 12. I was old. I was 12. Old in terms of life experiences. 12th, 7th grade. But my mom wouldn't let me run. My first encounter with the police, but not my last. My first. And then she having to go. Imagine your mama, I don't know if it was that time afterward, but my mama having to get a ride, go to the juvenile system, get me out as a baby, as a boy, using whatever resources she had. So when I say I helped kill my mama, I'm talking about the stress, trauma, that caused so much of it. And so, I just think about never telling her that I love her, regret. So when I think about that transition and that first encounter, I got to fight. I don't even know the man's name who I got to fighting with at the school in the 9th grade. I was a sub-freshman, did good in the 8th grade. 9th grade, I got tired of being broken poor. My brother Garrett, hustling, had a little job, but he was hustling, take care of his kids and others. My brother, everybody was doing that. But then I just started, got to fighting, expelled from all schools in Atlanta, public schools, and then that did it. What am I gonna do? So I decided it's time for me to get my hustle on. This was trapping, not that kind of trapping, you hear about people making. No, this was foolishness out of necessity. We justified, we killed you because we had a reason, but I'm not sure justification was adequate. We robbed the mailman. People steal your welfare check. People steal anything. Survival. But we loved each other. You probably say that not. Don't judge. Because you don't know that walk. And when you're poor and you're impoverished, education wasn't important to me no more. I forget education. I've only been to high school 1 year. I got a GED. Now I want to talk about the people who saved my life. That transition from Bankhead, I was still living there. But after those 2 years, a man named Bobby Garrett, and what he and the organization did is I take a pause. But I want to transition to now to talk about Academy T and what it did for me in that transition.
Did we talk about the detention center?
Well, Tony,
No.
you mean me?
Yeah.
Remember I said I got locked up and my mom had to come get me out?
Okay, can you tell me, I guess, a little bit about the people you met while you were there, like the boys?
I don't remember, but I can talk about the school, but the people I met, the boys getting locked up. I think about it. People, come back out, you acting like you something because you've been locked up. A badge of honor. That's foolish. Anytime you hear somebody talking about they got street credit because they've been shot, or they shot somebody, or they robbed somebody, man, that's garbage. Who the hell wants to say that I got street credit because I've been, no. Gangster, what? That's foolishness. And what have we done? We passed that on to generation and generation, and me too. There wasn't no badge of honor for me. I probably was more of a nerd than I was a thug. My behavior was thug-like, and maybe I'm justifying it. But I justified it because I was hungry. I wanted some stuff. I ain't want to have to ask nobody for a nickel or a dime. So I'm gonna do anything necessary. I'm strategic, gonna plan how I'm gonna do this. Leadership was a given, but now, who the heck wants to wait when you're poor and broke and say, well, you need to go to high school, but you don't even have your necessities. Girls don't even have the things they need to stay in school because their parents their mom can't get them this or that. So what do? Maybe they have a baby, now they get a welfare check. I'm not saying it's right or wrong. And maybe they get an apartment if they're old enough. Now they got their own stuff. But it also was an environment that set us up, some of us, for generations and generations and generations, because we couldn't see that far. You living by the day. Trauma, every day. Kids fighting, getting killed. Next day you forgot about it. You don't have like no event. I hear people talking about an event. No, we live trauma every day. Every day. But guess what? It became a way of life. It was nothing. You got rats running across my feet, big as cats. Babies getting bit. People zoned out on spray paint, fight just because, babies getting bit, rioting, throwing rocks at people, fighting just because, having sex. Why? Because nothing else to do. You got no car. I'm listening to my boy talking about family trip. What? My family trip was to my grandmama's house with my uncle when I was helping them with their girlfriends. I was 5, 6 years old. They give me a nickel to dance and see the Jane Brown for their girlfriends. My grandmama dressing me up. My mama dressing me up, going to stay with her. And my mama only sister, Joyce, and her brothers. And my mama having to go live with her father. My mama getting married when she was 15, probably not because she wanted to, because my grandfather's wife, her stepmom, didn't like her, I found out. So whatever choice she made. So I just think about my mama. I think about the mamas. I think about strong black women who have held it down. I'm not beating on black men who are doing the right thing. Listen to my boy, they had great dads. I don't know how that feel. I don't know how that feel. So there's a gap there.
And Academy T saved your life.
So this is so interesting. So when I was 14 to 16, I'm out there doing my thing. Me, D-Head, well, I know he's going to get out, and I owe him his grace and the Brock family an apology. But I'm out there in the street with my 12-year-old friend, my 14-year-old best boy running Brock little brother, D-Head. He was 12, I think. And we going in breaking people's houses and all that. But then we all on the basketball court, and 2 girls told this man named Bobby Garrett about me. One of them had a baby by my brother Greg, Cheryl. Another name was Sharon Whitehead. And this was this school called Street Academy that now has communities in schools, founded by Bill Milliken. I got to say this not because it matters, a white man. Neil Shorthouse, another white man. And another hero of ours named Dave Lewis, who don't get a lot of credit for his role in this. But they all were part of the Postal Academy, coming into the streets, going to these communities, trying to help kids like me get out of the streets. I remember I told you, I know people who didn't go past the 5th grade. There were no truant officers coming to find nobody. We were out there in the streets. What you gonna say to me? What you gonna do, make me? So we out there, I don't know, playing, Bobby said, and then Bobby Garrett, my mentor. They coming out in the streets trying to recruit us to go to this alternative school. And it's amazing. Out of all the boys out there, I guess I wanted something. I wanted to change. I was the only one who decided to try this school called Street Academy. Burger King Academy, Street Academy, Academy T in New York, and then they came, and Jimmy Carter helped them move the organization to President Jimmy Carter helped them move the organization to another level and make it nationally. But I was one of the first to go to this school. What the school was? It was a school as big as this room, and we had petitions. And everybody there had probably been either incarcerated, older men at 19, 18, 20 boys, girls who had had babies. It was an alternative school. And then me. I was there as a 16-year-old. I wanted to try it, but no, I didn't put my 22 and my 38 down right away. I didn't start gambling right away. I didn't start hustling right away. But eventually, Bobby, Dave, Bill, and Neil, the organization they created, it was a big change. It saved my life, actually. I stopped. And that's when I got that job busting tables and working at a print company. I've gone to 1 year of high school. I only had the 9th grade at this school. I didn't complete the 9th grade at Atlanta Public School. I've only went to school, I say the 9th grade. We didn't really have a grade. In some kind of way, you were supposed to be 18 to take the GED. I don't know what they did. But I was 16 because they felt I was smart enough. I had the highest grades at the school. And so they fixed it something. Well, I took the GED at 16. I was supposed to graduate from high school with my peers at 1977. I graduated in 1976 with a GED. My boy liked to kid me, man, I ain't sure you got a high school diploma. That's what Tony said to me, and I understand the context. But imagine 70-something people, maybe 80, and the boys, I can name 3 of us that maybe graduated from high school. I understand why. It wasn't because I was so good, but sometimes you don't have hope if you don't have opportunity. Stop hating on poor people. We're good. We just sometimes you got to do what you need to do to survive. So you're gonna deal with trauma. I didn't care nothing about trauma. I didn't know what it was. I lived it. We lived it. My mama lived it. Every mother out there lived it. We lived it all day, every day. And then, Bobby, I spoke at his homegoing. It was probably one of the hardest things I had to do. But he saved my life. This school gave me a second chance. And that second chance, they completed the only application to send me off to college. My mother didn't know what to do. Ain't nobody in my family went to school like that. My aunts went, my aunt. But my mama, none of my brothers and sisters, we didn't know nothing about that. They filled out the only application. Got me that job, like I said, then I turned 17 in June. And in August, they put me on a Greyhound bus. My brother gave me a little weed to take with me. I hid it on the camera or whatever I had. When I got there, they gave me a few dollars because by that time I stopped my hustling. It was hard because it's hard to get away from that money. But then I stopped and they put me on that Greyhound bus where it felt like a 20-hour ride. Probably was a 2-hour ride. But the Greyhound stopped every little place. My mom and them didn't have no car to take. Most people's family put them in a car, take them to college, get you introduced to the college. I'm reminded what I did for my daughters. I'm reminded what I did for my granddaughter. I want to be there to take them to college because I remember that experience, that traumatic experience. I get off a Greyhound bus in Tuscaloosa, Alabama, the only school application they completed. And I go into, and then all those teachers, I'm thinking about Academy T. They taught us how to love. They didn't penalize us and punish us for our past behavior. They looked at talent identification. And Tony Owen became a principal, not during my time because I'm older than Tony, but he became a principal of one of these schools, and that's how we connected later on down the road, though. Because this school was for kids like me that needed a second chance, that people didn't give up on. Most didn't graduate. Had a partnership, I'm sure, with Atlanta Public Schools, but these teachers loved us, and they care about us. You talking about relationships. I didn't want to fail Bobby and these teachers because they care. They didn't look at me and say, Reggie, you know what? Man, you done broken people's houses. I can't trust you. You done robbed people. You done stole from people. You done cheated on people. You done gambled. You done fought. You got a cut in your hand. You've been in all these fights. You done all this foolishness. But they didn't bring that up. They didn't look at me like that. They saw something in me that I didn't see in myself. They didn't want me stuck in the game. So teaching me, I sometimes talk about it, this story, and I don't want to lecture, but sometimes you got to walk that journey of that person who's going through that and look at that lens through the journey they're going through or try to, because you don't know their plight. You don't know how they got there. And so I feel pretty good about what we're talking, what I'm doing. But at the end of the day, I just want to poke up a little bit because as I go back and think about some of those things, and I'm sure Tony will bring out a point that I may have missed, but I want to perk up a little bit because Academy T led me to this triumphant life. I was ready to rid myself of that thug life. I was a nerd. You know how I know I was a nerd? Because even to this day, for the last 10, 12, 15 years, we'll be somewhere, T and I traveling. Or even when I'm at home, I'm watching Jeopardy every night. I'm a lifelong learner because I love learning. But learning wasn't important when you don't have your needs met. So you're going to go get something from somebody else. I'm going to take from you. But then that Academy T, transition. That transition. I got off that Greyhound bus, little college called Stillman College, a proud, historically black college and university in Tuscaloosa, Alabama, the same town that the University of Alabama is in. And I'm talking about, when you're born in Atlanta, man, I'm not talking about Clayco. I'm not talking about Decatur, where it's greater. I'm talking about the heart of the city, Atlanta. Wheat Street Garden. When you had that training, you've been through that, my brother tell me sometime, man, you had that street sense, you had that common sense. There was a lot of people out there who were smart, but you don't get a chance to show that when you're suffering. I keep reverting back to it. Those strong mothers. So now transition. I want to talk about that next phase of life called Stillman College. So I think about as I reflect back on how I got to Stillman College, and to me that's that journey. It started with Academy T, but taking it to the next level was when I arrived in Tuscaloosa, Alabama. I'll never forget it. August of 1980. No, August of 1976. I graduated in 1980. And I was like a fish in the ocean. Man, I was a culture shock. I'm like, got off that Greyhound bus with my few dollars in my pocket and one suitcase full of whatever it was I had clothes-wise, maybe two, with a band around it to keep it from breaking and falling apart. And I wanted to get back on that Greyhound bus the first day I got there because I'm looking around campus. I was lost. There was nobody to take me to college or drop me off. That's not the experience that a child should have, but I didn't have no choice because I didn't have family members that my mom and them, nobody, they didn't have no time. My brother and them were working, trying to do something for their own family by then. And now here I am going off to college. Stillman College, Tuscaloosa, Alabama. The only application that Bobby and Academy T Communities and Schools now at the time completed for me. And they accepted me on a GED. A young boy with 1 year of high school got a GED, 1976. My friends who were freshmen, they graduated. They were a year older than me, but I saw them and you do what the Romans do. I didn't know how to act. Nobody gave me a class. That's how a college student is supposed to be and act and do. I didn't have nobody to go to tell me and coach me. I did it because they told me to go do it. Bobby and the teacher said, you need to go to college. They didn't even apply for schools in Atlanta. I think they didn't do it because they didn't want me to get back and drift into what I was into in my same community. If I lived there, there's no doubt in my mind. I would have been playing that game during the day, calling it school, and at night I'm back to my same behavior. But they moved me out of that environment. So I get there and we move in the dorm. And I'm like, my first roommate, Lee Arthur Williams, called him Dr. Love. And then all my boys, and then I started meeting the twins from New York. And here we go again. Everybody started talking about their daddies. And then they were getting dropped off to college. And then, while we were there, like I said, that culture shock, I started to get on that Greyhound bus and come back home. But I couldn't be a failure. I didn't want to be a failure. And then I became so impressed watching other people that I wanted to suppress the way I grew up. Maybe I was ashamed as a young boy to talk about it. I wasn't ashamed of who I was, who my folks were, and people I grew up with, but I didn't talk about it. But I will fight you, or you say something crazy to me, I'll fight you too in college. I didn't care, I'll fight you. Got to fighting in college. I got to fighting in college. Why? Stupid stuff, playing basketball. But then I think about Tony, Benefield, Ben, and that freshman year, Keith, Lloyd. I think about all these dudes that I went to school with. And all that self-worth, I started gaining some of it back. Then I started sometimes thinking, Stillman College, what did it do for me? Gave me a chance. Gave me a chance. That HBCU, we can't afford to lose them. There's no minute telling how many kids' lives were saved. And so when I think about that transition of thug life, most people who did that behavior that I was in didn't get, who were involved in that kind of trauma and that foolishness and that hurt and pain you caused others, most don't go on to college. Most might get in a different kind of game, get out from trapping or from whatever they were doing, armed robbery, whatever they're doing. It leads from juvenile to being incarcerated as an adult. I bypassed that and it stopped. It broke. I didn't go after that. I went to college. Not because of me, but because of those moral compass angels that were able to get me in college. And then at Stillman College, it's so interesting. I started meeting people like Sharon Richardson and Diane and Brenda, and I don't want to say so many names, and the twins, Andre and Mike. Then finally, roommates and Curtis, a lot of these people I passed, a lot of my classmates, I start watching everybody else on campus. I start watching fraternities and sororities. And whoever said that fraternity and sorority should be opposed, no, they're not. And if they are, that's not the purpose. I was in a frat. I didn't hate the other frats, but it was a little competition. But I didn't want nothing bad happening to nobody. And guess what? We start liking and loving on each other. Hey, how you doing, bro? Everything good. And we create an environment. Now, granted, I would go to class, I'd be high. Every day I got out of class, my boys and I would be high. And then we were drinking Thunderbird and Boom Farm. And we'd be hungry going in the cafeteria after class. And it takes Sharon to say, she would call me names, and we stay up all night just talking about what we want to do. And then leadership came out. And then I was selected as Mr. Sophomore. And then I was Mr. United Negro College Fund. And then I joined organizations. I started out majoring in math, but I'll just be honest with you, math required too much of my time. So I changed my major to business. I'm just saying, because I share this. When I was in college, over those 4 years, I was president of the United Negro College Fund. I was on the Mayor's Advisory Council. I was in Sigma Pi Chi Epsilon. I was president of my dorm, vice president of my frat, dean of pledgees in my frat. I was on the Mayor's Advisory Council. I mentioned that. I was on the Tiger Paw with the newspaper. I was on the yearbook staff. I was a vice president of something of the business club. I can't even, I was in ROTC. I was over the all-girls drill team in college. Then I was the first black cadet battalion commander because we took ROTC at the University of Alabama and Stillman. I was involved in all that. But again, poverty. But leadership, self-worth. And then I remember one day we all, about 20, 30 of us, went to one of our classmates, Sharon's house, and her mama, and then we stayed overnight. And her mama fed all of us. I'm like, I wonder what she would do. I reflect sometimes if they had known I used to break in people's houses and steal, would they allowed me to go? But I hid it. I didn't want nobody to know it because I was really wanting to just be a good person, blend in, be a chameleon. But at the end of the day, I sometimes say what if, but Stillman, all those things in that journey, and then between November of 1979 and November of 1980, in that 1 year span, I had some critical things happen to me. My oldest daughter, my senior year in college, she was born. Thought about it. Maybe I ruined somebody's life. But I also knew that I had the greatest teacher in the world about being a father. And at the time, I asked, my child's mother, who wasn't my wife at that time, we were pregnant our senior year in college. I asked her mother to take care of my baby, and I'm going to make it right. Because I knew I didn't want to be like that sperm donor. Because I already said, ain't no man taking care of my baby. I'm going to take care of my child. Just give me 5 more months when I graduate. I'm already going in the Army. I'm going to be a second lieutenant. I'm going to have some money, and I'm going to take care of my baby. But I remember she was born in November 1979. That next semester, she would come on campus. Friends of her mom and friends of mine would keep her while I would go to class and stuff. 1979. Then May of 1980, I graduated from college. Nobody come to my graduation. They didn't have no way of getting there. And I was sad I graduated, honestly, because now I had to grow up. I wasn't happy that I graduated from college. It was the best time I had of my life. Peace. I'm a member of Alpha Phi Alpha Fraternity Incorporated. But my fraternity, I know I believe by heart everybody believes in theirs, but the good that fraternity and sororities were doing in school, and then even now, being leaders, nobody's better than nobody else. Realistically, it shouldn't be a crowd mentality of hurting each other. But then, in 1980, I graduated in May. I was commissioned a brand new second lieutenant. And then after I was commissioned as a brand new officer, I got a scholarship while I was there in college. They gave me $100 a month. I got an apartment with my boy Kurt. I ain't have no job, but that $100 a month, we had an apartment. Plus, we had a dorm room. And we had parties over there in the winter. We had no heat. We had batteries in the jukebox. And we go have parties there in college and all kinds of stuff. And then finally, you know, my daughter was born, like I said, in November 79, and then graduated in May 80, commissioned in June. In July, I was off to Fort Sill to training. I got married in October. And then in November, I lived in Germany. Never came back for 3 years. But what I did know is I was going to be the best father in the world because I had the best trainer. I know I keep reverting back. So any man that you hear this, yeah, I'm talking about it. I'm talking about it because, yes, I helped kill my mother. I didn't know no better. But that sperm donor, he also assisted because if you have a child, how you dare not take care of that child, be in that child's life? So, yeah, I'm reminded of a friend of ours named Marcy who wanted to do the story of my life. And I would think about it, and I didn't want to talk about it maybe because I didn't want to be that revealing. Visits to other people's house, the twins, Dre and Mike, and then Miss Colvin. I would go to Robin and Colvin house, she'd feed me. People would bring us food back. That's kind of love. But I want to say in pause because I owe a lady named Fat Black. She died 3 months ago. We went to her homegoing, but before that, she had a birthday party. She died of cancer. Her name was Linda. And she called me one day after she read the book. And she said, Red, some of us are really hurting because of something you wrote in the book. I said, Fat Black, what you mean? She said, well, you made it sound like the girls in college were better than the girls you grew up with. I said, Fat Black, that wasn't what I was saying. If you go back and read, I said it was just different. We struggled. We had trauma. The girls in college were, and the boys in college, they were about studying, and some of them, my roommate Slow became a judge, a lawyer, and other people became attorneys and professors and successful educators. They were doing something different, and I didn't know anything about that. So when I say different, that's because they had opportunity. They had hope because they had opportunity. We didn't have a whole lot of hope because we didn't have a whole lot of opportunity. I'm an anomaly in some ways. I know that. Most kids who go through the things that I went through, they don't go off to college and become successful and do all these things. And then just to summarize Stillman college experience, you know, when I told her that and I said the girls, they were every day not going to let your house say, we didn't have no entertainment in Bankhead. The entertainment was play games, get high, drink, be with your girlfriend at night, have sex outside or in your mama's house. They go to sleep or whatever. Then all this happened. And then, so I didn't mean it for it to sound like that because I love my Bankhead. You people know me, they know my heart. And then ultimately, after Stillman, I lived in Germany for the first 3 years, from 21 to 24, 1980 to 1983. But I was happy, because then I made some money. I could send my mama some money to buy whatever she wanted. I could give her the things that she never had. But by that time, I knew my mama was hurting and suffering. The greatest, best woman in the whole world. So that time, watching my boys and watching the other students there, me leadership changing, yeah, I got discipline. I delayed that instant gratification. Who the heck want to go to school for 4 years broke? But that's where it was. Nobody could send me money every day. I joined ROTC to get that $100 a month out of necessity. It just so happened I stayed in it because of leadership. Stillman College, HBCU, baby. HBCUs, purpose. Don't let them fail. We can't. I don't give. I give because I want to give, but I give because I know the necessity of giving to an HBCU. And so now all those things happen at Stillman. I can spend so much time. And even now, I see some of my best friends. We sometimes, all the time, we get together, whether it's homecoming or see them at other events, and we just have a great time. And after Stillman, I joined, obviously I said joined. I was commissioned as a second lieutenant in the military. My daughters, I haven't said enough about them. My daughters taught me how to love. I remember my baby girl, my oldest, had a seizure. And I was in what we call the field deployed. And I just cried. Nobody see me cry. I don't cry. My brother say, boys, don't cry. You're a punk if you cry. We didn't grow up crying. You don't show no emotion. But my baby girl had seizures, nothing I could do. And I would get home and she would hug me and love me and tell me, Dad, I love you and everything gonna be all right. And then my daughters, unconditional love. The greatest thing I ever done is being a father to my girls. And then while I was in the military, I had a military career where only the top 8% of lieutenant colonels, maybe, probably less than that, and it has to be, only the top 8% or less than 8% get selected for something we call battalion command. And then to mention about black battalion commanders in combat arms, I was one of those combat arms commanders where you're in the top less than 1%. So I knew then I was going to be a general officer after watching the Honorable Colin Powell, while I claim as a mentor. And I knew I was going to be a general. And I sacrificed and sacrificed. But the military was very racist. Let's not get it twisted. It was no different than the rest of society. You had to learn to survive. I couldn't say because the white man, I had mouths to feed. You can't say, but no, I'm going to do what I need to do because I was resilient, I was grit, and if I can survive Bankhead Court, I can survive the United States military because that's hard knocks. Nothing that the military did to me got me there. And so when I think about it, when I finally got stuff for my mama, I started speaking at conferences. The frat in Germany, years later, asked me to chair the Martin Luther King commemoration for the whole European continent. People would come from all over Europe to this event that I would plan as the primary planner. And then while I was in the military, my bosses, supervisors, asked me to be the primary planner for the celebration, 50th anniversaries in many countries. But then, while I was in the military, the crack epidemic hit Bankhead Court. People selling crack to their own family members. And I would go back home after being gone for years and I would see people I grew up with. And it was sad because these are the most beautiful girls ever. And all of a sudden, crack. Just like before that, gold paint and murder and violence and death. And then I was selected Man of the Year for the state of Oklahoma for my work with youth. First President George Bush came to, at that time I transferred, I was still in the military. I was a professor at Middle Tennessee State University, got my graduate degree, a master's in Aerospace Education paid for by the military, and I made captain. And First President George Bush came down and awarded me as the best instructor in the nation. It's called the Leo A. Card Award, as the best instructor in the nation for all colleges and universities. Because I was competitive. I wanted to be the best. And then the crack epidemic destroyed our community. But again, I'm not going to point fingers. Sometimes people, I'm sure people wish they had an option. Well, last time you seen, you don't see no little boy, like we even, Tony and I talk about the young boys, the water boys and stuff like that, and you seeing them out there with ankle braces on, and you're like, man, that kid's stuck in the game at a point of no return. They ain't gonna, I mean, most don't get a chance to take this route, to have those moral compass angels to help you. For those who are saying, just you stood on somebody's back. I did. Crack epidemic. Girls strung out. Girls no longer look like themselves. Boys locked up for life. Ronald Reagan, 3 strikes and you're out. Don't do drugs. Get out of here with that. I'm not talking about him. I'm just saying those slogans. So, I'm reminded, I got asked the question about what made me retire. I already said I was in the top percent. Some of my mentees, Sam, a bunch of others that people don't know, Hargrove and others, like when I told them that I was retiring, because no one commands a battalion, a combat battalion, field artillery battalion, but a field artillery battalion, no one does that and earlier makes the decision they want to get out. Well, I was tracking, we like to call it, to be a full bird colonel. Got selected, But I decided July the 12th, 1998, I got a call 2 months after I took over command at Fort Sill, Oklahoma, left my family in Atlanta. I decided I wanted to get out of the military because I had the dreadful call coming from church. And my niece said, Uncle Red, grandmama gone. I'm like, where did she go? My beeper was going off because we didn't have cell phones like that then. Uncle Red, grandmama gone. And my mama died July the 12th, 1998. It's the last time I had a bad day. This July the 12th would be 27 years since my mom passed. She was 59 years old, 12 days from her 60th birthday. But I decided to honor her, along with I had missed so much of my kids' life and my family life. And when I got that call, it tore me. You can't see it, but we had these hard brick walls, and I broke my knuckle because I hit the wall. The most important person in my life had just died. She didn't even make 60. And I think about how I helped kill her. But then I try to rationalize and I said, I'm going to give my life to her, and I honor her and the other mothers who did and kids who had that track. And so I decided to retire. I was selected for what we call the War College, selected for full bird, all that below the zone and all that other stuff. But I need to get back out here in this fight because there's a lot of Reggie Beatys out here. And maybe I can fight a different fight. I fought this war for 20 years, had some successes. You know, while I was in, I chaired the Jose Williams fundraising committee. I was man of the year for the state of Oklahoma. I had all these great accolades. But then I realized I could do something different. I started speaking at conferences, and then life changed for me. I decided to retire. And Neil Shorthouse came to my, actually Patty, his wife came to my retirement ceremony, or my change of command, we call it, where bells and whistles, and my business partner at the time, well, still is one of my business partners, Elliot Bryant came, and other people came. And I realized that I wanted to do something else in this war, different kind of war. I started thinking about the journey of the black community and what was happening to so many young black boys and others who didn't get an option. And so I got out. They asked me to come work for them. And during that time was some of my best times. But I was a non-traditional educator. First, with Tony Owens and a few other people, I developed this thing called the Leadership Institute. That every summer I would bring 300, 400, 500 Reggie Beatys and high school kids to Georgia Tech and Emory. And I would host. They would live on campus. I remember one kid said, what is this? He was scared to get on the escalator, I believe, something like that, because he had never been on an escalator. He was a high school kid, big old football player, begging to stay, because we built those relationship with those kids. We saw something in them, and it was a chance for them to get away. And then, while I was with CI Communities in School, they asked me to take the lead of starting these schools with funding from the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. First, they gave us another foundation, Woodruff gave us money to start 3 schools in Atlanta and Valdosta, 2 in Valdosta, 1 in Atlanta, and then then they went, and the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation heard about us, so we started 25 more in the state of Georgia, 20 more in the state of Georgia. And then they gave me money, gave the organization money that I led the team that put 25 more schools together, like the school that Tony was in charge of, but this was on steroids. Or the school that I went to that was on extra steroids. And Lawana and Tanetta Parks and all my whole team, we put together this initiative of 45 schools around the country. And the last I heard from Neil, that over 40,000 kids who otherwise would not have graduated from high school graduated. Because of something that this old boy from Bankhead Courts started, developed, led the team to put together. 45,000 plus. I don't know how many of them are still going. And then, while I was the chief operating officer of the largest dropout prevention organization in the state of Georgia, in fact, it's the largest in the country, Communities in Schools, I was the chief operating officer. The governor asked us to put together something called a graduation coach program. And I led the team to put together, this person was a coach to coach people who were vulnerable at risk in high school and middle school from scratch. Strategic plan. Then I realized, man, okay. I finally decided, Tony and I, we started linking up, started doing presentation and training, and we started doing our own thing. So I left. I went to President Obama's first inauguration. I came back and I put my resignation in, and they asked me to stay a little longer, and I stayed. But then I realized I could do my own thing. And so I fast forwarded, and Tony and I started putting stuff together, started training, started going to the juvenile justice system, started going to the Indian reservation, started speaking at conferences. People wanted to buy us out, and we said no. And we started doing more and more. And our work that he had as a former administrator in an alternative school, and me attending an alternative school and going through those experiences led us to create what we called the Performance Learning Center and the graduation coach program for the state. And then states like Alabama picked it up. And the governor asked us to take that lead. Governor Sonny Perdue at the time. And we put these statewide in every high school in the state of Georgia, putting programs together and putting it all together. So, you know, as I think back to that time of communities and schools, and I don't know if there's anything else, but it led me. And then finally, you know, probably in maybe 12 years ago, and let me just say, I've never had an interview for a job. And one time I got an interview, I didn't know I was being interviewed, and I never completed the application. I don't have a resume because I've been blessed and fortunate. But then a friend of ours asked Tony and I to help him. He brought us up to be the deans. And then we became the vice president and dean of a college, of a HBCU. It was just so joyous. All that happened. I don't know if I could keep a job. And then Tony and I made a conscious decision that we wanted to go in business for ourselves. So now we go around the country training principals and leaders on how to create high-performing culture and climate, because it is not curriculum instruction that fails schools. It's the culture and climate. Show me a failing school, I'll show you a failing culture and climate and the relationships that drive them. Show me a successful school. But we also know we were dealing with poverty. We knew we were dealing with single families and parents who were not involved. So we knew all that. You know, I want to fast forward, you know, to years ago after Tony and I became dean, vice presidents, after my time at communities and schools, after I got that scholarship with community schools to go to Harvard for those months, and the toughest course I've ever been to, a senior nonprofit management, and had that scholarship from the Atlanta Harvard Business Club, went off to Massachusetts and et cetera. But even afterwards, I sometimes talk about the work, but I would be remiss if I didn't talk about the lady I call Mama Bear. You know, and I call her that because of what she did and how she has been to my girls, my daughters. Great. Respect. And then I think about the two girls who I honor, who taught me how to love and be a dad. My greatest accomplishment. I owe it to them. They did it, support. And so, you know, I'm thinking about the work that Tony and I are doing now, what we're currently doing. We've written, even though we've written 7 books, this was the first book that was written, Thug Life to Triumphant Life. Sometimes it feels like scars because these emotional scars don't go away. And I told myself every day, you know, I'm not going to cry when I talk. I'm not going to hurt, but I can't help but hurting, but I'm going to keep it because I want to stay focused on it. But I think about my babies and my joy, and that I pray every day, and I sometimes I ask God to take that pain and suffering, because I was angry for so long because losing my mom, knowing that the sperm donor contributed, I contributed. And I dedicate that life, and still continues to dedicate that life to where I'm at right now and what I'm currently doing. But I'd be remiss to say it wasn't 10 years ago. I still had hate for him, and I don't hate nobody. But I hate because what had happened to my mom. And so now I'm happy. I'm at that triumphant life. I've been happy. I don't have bad days. I haven't had one since July the 12th, 1998, the day my mama passed. And I made a decision, if it doesn't get to the extent of the pain and hurt or suffering of my babies, I'm going to deal with life. I lost my brother. We lunched during COVID. Tony and I lunched Thug Life to Triumphant Life. And Tony said we need to relaunch, re-talk about it. And so this is the first time I've shared this story live like this, or in front of people knowing it's been written. But we're the authors of 7 books. a book for parents, a book for students, several versions, how to create high-performing culture and climates in the school, because it is not the curriculum and instruction. It is the culture and climate that drives academic success. And if you put the time in academic success in an intentional way, deliberate and intentional, then you'll see these other things happen. Regardless of all the foolishness that's happening outside, you can change what you can change. You cannot change the poverty environment, but you can change how you feel about students and buy-in. And so Tony and I held a podcast called, as you all are hearing this, but this story happened when I was a broken boy, a broken teenager, and a stool that were broken. You know, the school was broken for me. The family, the community was broken. Classroom broken. And here I was trying to sit on top of that with no foundational support. And what about kids? So Tony and I train people. We have a keynote this summer in another month, I think it is, or 3 weeks, where we're speaking in Grand Rapids, Michigan, to a Black and Brown Boys Symposium by Grand Valley State University. And we keynoted other places. And those keynotes, and then I'm proud that I was the first of my siblings to buy a home. And now all my siblings owned a home. My brother passed, my oldest. And then my daughters, like I said, no, there's no reason for me to find the sperm donor. I'm not going to say his name. He doesn't deserve it. But if you have been a sperm donor, and I hope and I pray when I think about people who want to hear this story, and then Tony and I, we have our business, Foundation for Educational Success. We have our podcast. And then we decided we wanted to start a nonprofit called Not Absent Right Here. In other words, black men are not absent, black men are right here. So many of our boys can't read. So how do we get more black men focusing on academic and being okay with teaching our boys and making our boys not just great athletes, but you need to understand in this society we live in, you must have education. Otherwise, we're going to see generation and generation of boys left behind. And then the other thing, we got to understand, follow the money trail. When you live in a capitalist society, my greatest fear is being poor again. And I won't be poor again. I just said that's the way I think. Not because I'm bragging or cocky. I just won't be poor again because I'm driven by it. And now Tony and I, we're trading. We're in the stock market. We're day trading. We're doing long-term trading as well, but we're day traders when we're not running and doing other things. And so who did I write this book for as I close out and summarize? I probably did a little for myself. I've done better because there's been some coaching, better than I thought I would in terms of being able to hold up to it, because normally I'm a wingman right here and we're talking about it. But that encouragement, my brother giving me the green light. Now I talk about all of it because I wanted to keep it. But then finally, there's so much work to be done in our communities. What's your role? How do we then get beyond that? So I close out by saying, Hayes, Monica, Tony, who encouraged others that I talked to, who encouraged me to tell this story. It feels good now that it's over, but I ain't gonna tell you no lie. I was a little bit kind of like, yeah, what am I talking about? And, but now it is over. I'm glad, and I hope it changes a teacher who are working with kids or adapt. I hope it makes a parent. I hope it makes a father realize they have a responsibility. And just because you may put $1 out there, that doesn't give you a right. I hope it tells a young man who decides to beat up on a girl or a woman, that don't make you a bad dude. Go beat a big football player up with 300 pounds. That's impressive. But I grew up around that and all that trauma. And so I hate it. I hate it for what happened, but now I'm so happy because I'm living that triumphant life because of all those moral compass angels who supported me, and I don't deserve it. It was good about me. Why not some of my boys who are locked up and dead for the rest of their lives? But I owe it to them. I owe it to all those mothers and everybody else in the court to honor them and to honor that lady, my mother. When I was selected as the best instructor in the nation, she put my picture in the rent office. I had them put my picture up in the Atlanta Journal-Constitution because we were proud. When I go back, everybody proud of me, but it ain't me. It's because I represent all my folks I grew up with, all the people, all the mothers who suffered. My story, Thug Life to Triumphant Life. I appreciate it. On behalf of two men on the stool, you won't see this happen with just one of us unless it's some topic that we just want to talk about. But normally it's Tony and I, my wingman. So thank you. Whatever it is, teachers, parents, others, share this. Contact us. Let us know. But now, I'm happy. I'm happy because I'm in that triumphant space. So I just want to say thank you to our producers. Thank you to all of those who are listening. Thank you for taking this plight, this journey with us. And when you point one finger and blame somebody else, just know again, 3 more pointed back at you. I love you, and a doggone thing you can do about it.